For those who don't know me, I know you guys know me, but for those who don't know me, if you're either listening to this live or listening to this on the recording, I am Dr. Brett Hill. I am doing this recording from my chiropractic practice, which is Healthy Choices Chiropractic. And we are here in St. Agnes near Tea Tree Plaza. And I'm really passionate about this topic. I do have 3 children, so 2 who are of school age at the moment, 12 and 10, and then a little boy Timmy who's 2, who will no doubt be heading off to school before we blink, because that's the way it goes. My eldest just headed off to high school, which kind of blows my mind. And so this is a topic that's near and dear to me, and especially because over my career as a chiropractor, which has now spanned well over 15 years, probably getting closer to 20 years, I see a lot of kids with postural problems and postural challenges, and I see the effects that has on their bodies and their spines and their nervous system. And I see a lot of adults who have problems, and often, then you're seeing it 10, 20, 30, 40 years later, and it can have massive ramifications on their bodies in numerous different ways, which I'll talk about shortly. So it's a topic I'm really passionate about, and I think what we're seeing as a general rule in our society is that these problems in our kids are occurring younger and younger. We're spending more and more time on our gadgets and devices, more and more time connected to the internet, watching TV, those sort of things. I mean, seemingly the younger generation actually don't watch that much TV. They do it all on their computer, and it's all about, YouTube and TikTok and all those sort of things. So, but we're seeing more and more of those postural stress happening earlier and earlier as a result of those behavioral choices. So I think this topic is more important than ever. I'm just checking here. This screen has frozen a fraction from my end. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm going to keep going. If it's frozen from your end, then please let me know, so I know what's going on. But it looks like it's slowly starting up again. Always fun doing these lives and seeing how everything goes. But anyway, as I said, I am a Healthy Choices Chiropractic. This is a topic I'm really passionate about, is looking after people's spines and nervous systems. If you want to find out more about us and our practice, you can find us at healthychoicescheropractic.com.au. And actually, I will put that link in here into the chat. So once again, this is strangely going very slowly from my end. Okay, but not frozen for your end, so that's good. All right. So I'm going to put some information in here just quickly about my practice and where you can find us. And I'll put this probably in again later on towards the end. But also, if you do want to come in and see us in the practice, we do currently have a $20 initial consultation where you can come in and see us. And so I'll put a link here. But if you do want to book in and come in and see us, you can actually just click on that link, come in, get your spine and nervous system checked by me for just $20. So if that's something you're interested in, by all means do that. But this is the first of hopefully many live events that we'll be running in the practice. This one is online, and we will do some of these events online, but hopefully as we move forwards and as the world gets a little less crazy, we'll do more and more of these events in person, because my new practice I've deliberately designed so that I can run these kind of events. Many of you will have been to some of our previous events and know that I've run a lot of events previously, both here in South Australia and also all around Australia. So, right up to, big events of, 1,000 people in Melbourne with the Wellness Summit, but many events here in Adelaide that many of you will have been to with various different speakers. And so in my new practice here, Healthy Choices Chiropractic, we've deliberately set it up so that the whole adjusting area, the whole waiting area, everything can be moved back and away to the walls. There's a projector there, there's chairs there ready to go, so we can run events as soon as humanly possible. So I'm hoping that'll happen next month, where we're planning on having a chemical-free living event run by myself here in the practice. So stay tuned for that. If you want to make sure you're finding out about all of these talks and events that we do, then sign up or join my Facebook group, which is Healthy Lifestyle Choices with Brett Hill. I should have a link here for that to share. Maybe I'll try and do that while I'm chatting to you here. I'll grab you a link for that as well, so that I can just put that in the chat here, and then we'll kick off and really get into today's presentation. So I'll just grab this link for you. It won't take me 1 second. Now we're ready to get into it. Probably gives everyone a little bit more chance to come in and join as well. So here we go. And so all those are going into the comments. There's the link for the Facebook group. So if you really want to make sure you don't miss any of these future events, then I'd suggest you join in there. But let's get into it. Let's get into talking about posture and the spine and the nervous system, and particularly how we can look after our kids. And many parents are concerned about their kids' posture. This often comes through via nagging, where we're constantly trying to tell our kids, sit up straight, watch your posture, look after yourself. And I'm going to talk in a bit about how to get your kids to listen to that as well, because I think often the way we try and communicate that is incredibly ineffective, and it just does not work, and in fact just makes things worse often, in fact, and creates a bit of a battleground in our households. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that and how we can do that a little bit better shortly. But often people are concerned about this, parents particularly concerned about this for a number of reasons, and one of the main ones is often aesthetics. And I would suggest that that is very often the least important one, but that is often what people are most concerned about. So, for some kids, that's really important. If your child is planning on having a career as an actor, for example, or a dancer, then posture is really important, and the aesthetics of that are really important. And so, there are lots of studies out there about looks and appearance that suggest that people like things that are symmetrical, whether that be faces or postures, and that can be really important if you're looking to get into modeling or something of that nature. But as I said, I think that is probably, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of health and well-being and your child's life, that is possibly the least important one, because other things we need to talk about are really things like degeneration, and it's not hard to understand that if your posture is out of alignment, if the weight is distributed in a disequal way, in a way that it's not designed to be, much like if you had a car that's wheels were out of alignment, then that would cause more wear and tear on your car, and it causes more wear and tear on your body, where if things aren't aligned well, if you're not maintaining good posture and looking after your spine and nervous system, it will degenerate, it'll wear and tear. By the same token, there's a greater injury risk. And once again, it's not hard to see that if you have an imbalance in your body of that nature, then that's going to put more stress on some tissues and structures, and less stress on some tissues and structures. And as a result, you're going to have imbalance, and you're more likely to have injury. So I think we can all understand that pretty easily. There's more and more research coming out around sports performance and suggesting that your posture, your alignment of your spine and your nervous system can be really important for sports research. For sports performance. And so, we have a couple of books in the practice here, which are called Chiropractic. I was going to say chiropractically speaking, but I think I'll get that wrong. Anyway, we have a couple of books produced by the Australian Spinal Research Foundation. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Perhaps Adele might be listening in here and she might be able to remind me. But anyway, we've got a couple of books in the practice that are full of chiropractic research produced by the Australian Spinal Research Foundation, and they are awesome. And there are several papers in there talking about the importance of a well-aligned spine and a properly functioning nervous system in terms of athletic performance. And there's some really cool stuff there. One of the studies they did was looking at cricketers and looked at the ability to control their core and to switch on their abdomen when they were doing activities, which is not only important for performance, but also important for injury prevention. So really important for our sports people. There are other studies in there talking about the importance of your spine for brain function. And whilst for many people that might be something new and novel that they've only just heard about and are not aware of the links that are there, it is actually something that's been out there for quite a while. In fact, there was a Nobel Prize winning neurologist, and I actually shared this quote, I think, last week on my social media, so some of you may have seen that. But his name is Roger Sperry, and so he won the Nobel Prize some 10 or 20 years ago. So this is not new. And he said that 80 to 90% of the nutrition of your brain, of the stimulation and nutrition of your brain, comes from your spine. He's also previously been quoted as saying that the spine is like the windmill that generates the power for your brain. Right? So if you want your kids to be performing well at school, if you want your kids to be switched on, to be less stressed, and I'll talk about stress in a second as well, then having a healthy functioning spine and nervous system is really important. All right? And the stress link is really important for our kids. And we know that our kids are more stressed, more anxious than ever. And we also know that our kids probably have worse postures than ever. And there may well be a link there, because what we know is that the way your body's designed to de-stress is movement. All right. And so when you move your body, it sends messages back to your brain called proprioception, messages about where your body is in space. And those same messages about where your body is in space actually help to release dopamine and serotonin in your brain. So they actually help to de-stress your brain, help it to switch off. And that's really important if you want your kids to be learning, because when you're in fight or flight, then your memory tends to switch off, your ability to concentrate tends to switch off, as does many other things like your digestion, your cellular immunity, things like that are super, super important. So you can't be in gut growth and healing and fight and flight at the same time. You kind of have to choose one. And one of the best ways to switch off the fight or flight, get back into the gut growth and healing, is via movement of your spine, because that's where, as I said, 80% of that feedback comes from. Breathing is a really interesting one, and there's a lot of research out there showing that both structurally and neurologically, particularly in terms of that upper back and that rounding and that head coming forward, which we unfortunately see in a lot of our students, that can really have an impact on their breathing, both structurally and neurologically. Digestion is another that, once again, structurally and neurologically can be affected when the spine isn't aligned and functioning well, when there's not the appropriate space there for the organs, but also when there's that nerve interference going on. And when we talk about nerve interference, the nerves control everything in your body. Every cell, tissue, and organ in your body is controlled and regulated by your nervous system. And so if you have dysfunction in your spine, misalignment in your spine, that's causing interference to your nervous system, then that can certainly affect the whole raft of things. And so once again, if you think that's the case with your child, I'm going to talk about some stuff that you can do tonight to help prevent that and to help manage that. But also, obviously, if it's already happened, then getting in and getting checked by a chiropractor, I would suggest, is a really good idea. And if you're not local to me and you want me to help you find one, then by all means, let me know and I will help you find someone great close to you, because I'm fortunate that I have been in this industry for almost 20 years now, and I have some great contacts all around Australia, in fact, all around the world, that I can help hook you up with. So, my legendary assistant Adele has just come on and reminded me that the book is called The Case for Chiropractic. So there is a Case for Chiropractic Volume 1 and a Case for Chiropractic Volume 2. We have them both in the reception area of the practice here. So if you want to check out some of that research, whether you're a practice member or not, by all means, come and say hello. We'll make you a cup of tea. You can have a little look at those books because they're pretty awesome. So let's get into what we can do about it, right? We've sort of spoken about the problem and how that affects us. And once again, I know for all of you listening to this, I know many, if not all of you, have got a child in your life. I think most of us probably have a child in our life, whether it be a sibling, whether it be a child or someone who we're responsible for, whether it be a grandchild, whether it be a cousin, a niece or a nephew or a friend's child, whatever that may be, that you think about and that made you think that this might be a good idea to have a listen into. Or in fact, you may just be someone who spends a lot of time sitting at work, is concerned about your posture. You may not be a student, but you realize that all of this information can actually be very, very applicable to you if you, for example, have an office job. So let's get into it and talk about it. And the first thing I want to talk to you about as parents is motivation, because once again, as I said earlier, one of the worst things you can do to get your child to improve their posture is nag them about improving their posture. It just doesn't work. It's incredibly ineffective. And for any of you who have children, especially for any of you who have teenage children, you would understand that, in fact, probably you're going to have the exact opposite effect. All right. So nagging doesn't work. What you need to do is you need to figure out how to motivate your child so that they would want to look after their posture. And that can take a little bit of creativity sometimes, but also just a bit of knowledge and understanding, and a bit of time, a bit of present time consciousness with your children. So some of you may have seen, I did a Facebook Live with my daughter Charlotte just the other day, which was really fun. She loved it. She was so happy with that, just joining in and chatting to you guys. And it was super, super cute because she was on that day, she was in with me. She's homeschooling at the moment, back to school next week, which we're all super excited about. So she was homeschooling next to me and sitting next to me, and we were talking about her posture. And I said to her, we talked about nagging and how ineffective that is and how that just doesn't work for her and doesn't work for me, and kind of sets us up for this sort of battle where I wanted to do one thing and she wants to do something different. And that's not fun as a parent, right? And so, but then we spoke about what motivates her. And so we spoke about how at the moment, one of the things she's really interested in at the moment is potentially doing acting, and also doing dancing, which is probably why those two popped into my head when I mentioned it earlier. And so those are her motivations. And so she understands that for dancers, that their posture is important for them. That many dancing schools and many dancing instructors are very hot on getting their pupils to look after their posture and to make sure they're standing up nice and straight and erect, and they're maintaining really, have really good body positional awareness, so that they can do those movements they need to do. And very much the same for actors. So I know when I was practicing chiropractic, when I first graduated in Sydney, I actually had just around the corner from me both a dance school and an acting school. both of whom who used to send their students to me to get their postures analysed because they realised that was really important. So, so it's about figuring out, the point being, it's about figuring out what motivates your child. And so for Charlotte, helping her understand how having a healthy posture and a healthy functioning spine and nervous system would help her with dancing and acting. Now she's on board, right? Now we're on the same page rather than battling each other, because I'm helping her get what she wants, which is to do acting and dancing, okay? So it's about getting onto the same page, right? If I was talking then to my son about it, then I might be talking about, at the moment, cricket is his thing, which is super exciting for me, because those of you who know me and have been listening to me for a while know that I'm an absolute cricket nuffy and that I love cricket. And so the fact that he's all of a sudden, after years of showing zero interest in cricket, and I know for many of you who are probably particularly mums out there, but that's probably generalising, but many of you out there, probably mums and dads and others, have zero interest in cricket, so find this terribly uninteresting. But for me, it's interesting. And for the point being, for Tom, it's interesting, right? That's what he's into. So if I can talk to him about how staying up tall and maintaining good posture is going to help him bowl just that little bit faster, hey, all of a sudden he's totally on board. All right. So you got to figure out what your kid is motivated by and help show them how looking after their posture is what's going to help them get what they want. Okay. The other big tip, and there are a number of these tips that I could go through in terms of parenting tips, and many of them are actually covered in one of my books, which is called Nourish Without Nagging. You can get that on my website, drbretthill.com, or you can buy it from us here in the practice at Healthy Choices Chiropractic. And that's all about how to get your kids to love eating healthily. And I talk about things like showing them how to get what they want, about role modeling, a whole range of a raft of other, about 10 different measures that you can use to help them get involved in the kitchen and growing their own stuff and things like that. But really, it's all the same, right? The same strategies, the same motivational tools that work for helping your kids eat healthily also work for helping your kids look after their posture and their spine and their nervous system. So one of the big ones that I talk about in that book and that I want to talk about tonight is role modeling, okay? Because if you are sitting on the couch, hunched over on your phone, checking Facebook the entire time whilst you're yelling at your kids to sit up straight and improve their posture, it's going to be less effective. If your kids are seeing you at home doing your foam rolling, doing your stretches, sitting up straight, setting up your workstation right so that you're maintaining and looking after your posture, doing all the other things that I'm going to talk about tonight, then you're much more likely to get good results with your kids, because your kids will listen far more to what you do than to what you say. And all of you out there who are parents or who are carers will understand that innately. So make sure that you're role modeling good posture to your kids as well, okay? But let's just talk about posture for a second, because one of the things you're going to want to be able to do is just check your kids' alignment, okay? And so if you're concerned about your kids' posture, it's really simple, all right? What I want you to do is, it's something you have to do it right now, but later on, or tonight, probably tomorrow now, it's getting a bit later now, is just get your child, all right, and use something like a door frame, okay? So see the door frame just behind me here? If I'm going to do it, if I come and stand next to the door, I'll do it and I'll come straight back so you can hear me again, right? But if I stand just here inside the door frame, I don't know how well you can hear me and how well you can see me, but I'm going to come back anyway. But if you use a door frame like that, it's going to give you a really cool point of reference, okay? And so you can get your child to stand. Just stand naturally. Don't tell them to stand up straight or anything like that. Just to get them to stand in that door frame, and you can take a photo of it so that you can show them. Would be a really good idea, because once again they're gonna listen much more if you can show them rather than tell them. If you tell them as a parent, they're like, eye roll. Here goes mum and dad again, right? But if you take a photo and ask them, what do you see? What do you notice? And the things to get them to look for is the height of your ears, right? The bottom of your ears here, are they sitting at the same height, or is one higher than the other, right? Is there unequal there, right? Same with the shoulders. If we go to the point of the shoulders, are they sitting higher, lower? Are they roughly the same, right? What about the hips? If we sort of put our thumbs on our hips, put our thumbs on above it's not actually, your hips are down here, right? This is actually an iliac crest, but it's what everyone calls their hips. If you put your thumbs there, are they the same height, or are they tilted, okay? And so you can do that. You can take a photo of that. You can show your kids. You can talk about that with your kids. And then what would be really cool would be to get your kids to take a photo of you, okay? Because if you do that first, once again, then they'll be a lot more interested. They're way more interested in pointing out your problems than they are having you point out their problems. So if you give them a chance to point out your problems, that's a good way to engage them and to get them on board. And then you can do the same from side on, right? So if you get them side on, you should be able to look at a point right in the middle, just the ear hole, right in the middle of the ear. And that should line up with what's called your military patch, right in the middle of your shoulder, just here. Okay, that should line up with the point of your hip, right? So right here, just kind of where the crease of your pants is here. And that should line up with a point just in front of, maybe an inch in front of the ball of your ankle. So you should be able to look from side on and make a straight line down between those points. And what you'll find in most people in our modern society is that the shoulders come forward, right? So the shoulders come forward and internally rotate, and the head comes forward to a varying degree in most people in our society. And that does have all of those ramifications we spoke about earlier. That has a really big impact on people's health and their spines and their nervous systems. So that is how to do a really simple posture check on your child. And as I said, really cool would be to get your child to do a really simple posture check on you. Because as I said, that'll get them engaged and interested, because once again, they'd rather point out your problems than have you point out theirs. And so if that's going on, if you've done that posture check on your child and you can see there are some postural challenges here, then all of the tips we're going to talk about from here onwards are going to be important for you. And you may already know that. You may have already recognized that there are these problems going on. But that check is a good one to do as well, just to bring it to life, right? Because it's, once again, often if mum or dad says, hey, you're slumping forward, your child's like, oh yeah, whatever. But if you can show them and maybe take a picture and talk about it and engage with them of, what do you think? Do you think this is affecting you? Do you think this might affect your ability to dance later on or play football or whatever it is you want to be able to do? Then you can sort of much more easily get them on board. So once again, if that's going on, I would definitely suggest getting a checkup with a chiropractor, because, getting the structure right is really important. What I see classically is often I see parents who are nagging their kids saying, sit up straight, sit up straight, sit up straight. And the kids are saying, it's really uncomfortable, because my spine isn't functioning well, because I have restrictions there, because of the interference to my nervous system, and I can't properly control those stabilizing muscles, then actually coming back into this ideal posture you're telling me to get into is really uncomfortable. And what I know as a chiropractor is sometimes forcing them back into that ideal posture when things actually aren't working properly can cause more problems than it solves. Okay, so be careful of doing that. If there is segmental dysfunction there, if there's restriction in those joints, if there's nerve interference going on, then you probably want to get them checked by a chiropractor before you go ahead and get them trying to do all these other things, okay? Or at least some of these other things, particularly the stretches and exercises. Some of these things are just good to do anyway, all right? And the first point I'll talk to you about is a big one in that, and that is screen time. And so, screen time really is an important preventative measure. And I don't think I need to nag any of you as parents. As I said, nagging is particularly ineffective. So I'm not going to nag you about your kids' screen time, but I know that you already know and understand that minimizing your kids' screen time is important. And I know you also know and understand that our modern world, our kids need to be able to use computers. I mean, at the moment, if they're homeschooling, it's an absolute necessity that they know how to use the computer. And so you wouldn't want to be a child who'd never been exposed to a computer in the current environment. So I think in our modern world, it's important they do have some time and they understand how to use it and what to do. And, social media is becoming more and more important part of our kids' social lives. And they can get somewhat ostracized if they don't have any access to that. My kids don't have their own social media accounts or anything like that, but they do have some exposure to that. They will. My daughter, for example, will from time to time use my Facebook account to Facebook message her friend over school holidays so they can have a little bit of contact. And so, your kids are going to have some screen time, but I think it's really important to balance that out and to be really conscious of how much time they're spending doing that versus how much time they're spending up and about, moving, using their body, keeping their body mobile, activating their postural muscles, doing all those good things. Okay, so be mindful of the screen time. By the same token, be mindful of the desk setup. So I really wish I could show you. I should have taken a photo of my desk setup so I could actually show you better what I do here. But so you can understand, what you want to aim for in terms of a desk setup for anybody, okay, is that your feet are firmly on the ground, okay? Your knees are at 90 degrees. Now you can't see that very well here, but my knees are at 90 degrees. Then my hips are at 90 degrees, okay? What I then want to be able to do is, if I'm using a keyboard, I don't want to have to hike my shoulders up here to use a keyboard that's up here, right? And I don't want the keyboard to be way down low. I want to be able to have my elbows at roughly 90 degrees so that I can comfortably use the keyboard here. Yeah, all right, Tori, I will definitely take a photo. In fact, I wonder if I can even do it now. I'll definitely take a photo later and I'll show you my desk setup. I might have to tidy my desk a little bit before I do it, but I'll show you that. But I'll explain it in a second anyway, and I think you get a pretty good idea of what's going on. All right, but ideally, once again, you want your elbows at 90 degrees there so you can work away on your keyboard. But then what often happens, and particularly at the moment, all our kids working on their laptops, is if you've got the laptop down at this level, that means the screen's down at this level. Now, I can guarantee you, if you work on that screen for any length of time, that your head is going to start coming down towards that screen. And the further the day goes on, the closer and closer your head gets to that screen. Now, any of us adults who work on computers, and particularly laptops, will recognize that this is true. It's even worse on a tablet because that screen is down flat. And any of you, who, once again, who have kids in your lives and have seen them working or playing computer games for any length of time will absolutely recognize that's true as well. Okay, so what that means in terms of the desk setup, once again, I will take a photo of this for you later, Tori, so you can see it. But what that means is I have a combination desk here. So my desk is the right height and my chair is the right height so that I can sit here with my feet flat on the ground. My knees are at 90 degrees, my hips are at 90 degrees, and if I rest my hands forward on the keyboard, my elbows are at roughly 90 degrees, okay? Now, that then, on top of that desk that you can't see here, in fact, you know what, I'm gonna do it. Okay, hang on, I'm gonna move it around for you. Watch this. I'll see if I can do this without losing my microphone. All right. Got a big long cord here on my microphone. All right, so, here we go. So, on top of my desk here, this is called a Movi workstation. And so what this does, once again, I'll try and do this without killing myself here. What this does is I can actually adjust this. And so if I want to do standing desk, and this is the only drawback of this desk is it's kind of loud. But that's okay, because I don't have to do it too often. But this is kind of cool, right? It's a little bit high tech. So if I want to do a standing desk, what happens now is this comes up, and it comes up to just the right height, so that when I'm standing, and I'll let it stop, it gets kind of loud. I knew I was going to do that. Alright. Just bear with me 1 second. I made a mess. Alright. Oh, fine. Oh, it's got the edge. Sorry about that. I was hanging that poster at the back there yesterday, and I think I knocked my standing desk slightly over, and so it all came crumbling down. Anyway, I'm back. So, what this means now is if I'm using the desk here, if I'm standing up, now the keyboard is at perfect height, right? So I've got my elbows at 90 degrees, I'm able to use the keyboard. And relative to the keyboard, the monitor, so I'll put my laptop up here and use the USB keyboard, or in this case a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse, so that I can keep my laptop up the top here, and then my keyboard and mouse down here. So the laptop, then the middle of the screen should be level with your eyes, okay, and then the mouse and the keypad are going to be level with my elbows. That allows me to sit up nice and straight. I'm looking straight ahead. So if I start slouching, all of a sudden I'm going to look up to try and get to my screen. It's kind of uncomfortable. It encourages me to stay in that good posture. Now I'm going to try and put this down without ruining the joint. Hopefully this goes down okay and I don't have another disaster here. Alright, here we go. Alright, so we're going to have a little bit of noise again as that comes down. Yeah, cool. So Tori says, yes, great info. First year of high school, yes, I understand. First year of high school, Victoria as well. First year of Ella's having a laptop for homework and schoolwork, yeah. So I would definitely encourage, with the laptop, that you think about the standing desk, because as I said, getting them not to sit down for too long at any one time is great, but definitely the USB mouse and the keyboard is a really good idea. Obviously that means that you kind of need to have one workstation. Sorry, I just realised my mic's not even pointing towards me. Hopefully you're still able to hear me okay. Obviously that means that you're slightly less mobile in terms of a laptop. It kind of defeats the purpose of a laptop to some degree, because you can't move around quite so much. But it does definitely improve or reduce the postural stress that results as a result of that. So it's super easy to set up. This little stand and the keyboard and the mouse just came from Officeworks for less than $100. You'd get all three of those, probably well less than $100. You get all three of those and you're set up ready to go. And they're adjustable. You can adjust that for different family members to different heights. So that's easy to do. All right. So that's the desk setup. Next, I want to talk to you about backpacks. I mean, when Tommy headed off the other day to his first day of high school, obviously, day one, you have kind of everything with you, right? Because it's all got to go to high school to go into your locker. And oh my God, I picked up his bag. I was like, oh, this about went through the floor. There was so much stuff in there. It was so heavy. So once again, you got to work on that motivational aspect of what inspires your kids to see if you can manage to get them at least some of the time to wear that backpack with both shoulder straps on and the waist strap on. It's terribly uncool. It's terribly unpopular to say that, but if you can manage to get your child to do that, and I fully recognize that this is a really difficult one, the more you can get them to do that, ideally the more you can get them to want to do it without you nagging them, the better off you're going to be. But also, obviously, just being really mindful of communicating with them about not carrying everything all the time, right? Nowadays they have to carry a laptop for a lot of schools. But if they can just bring home the books that they need, and if they just take around to class the books that they need for that sort of session, I was just sort of trying to say to Tom, well, look, just at the start of the day, get what you need between then and recess, and then at recess, get what you need between then and lunch, rather than trying to carry everything all around at once. So, they say that really your bag should only be 10 to 15% of your body weight. Now, I think, as with always these kind of studies, they take the average, right? So they're like, well, what can the average child reasonably carry without it causing problems? I do tend to think, 10 to 15% is not a lot. And for most kids in our modern world, in our modern schooling with laptops and textbooks and all those things, it's probably an impractical weight, right? Like 10 to 15% is not much. And it's going to make their life difficult trying to carry that little around, unfortunately. But I do also think that if you have a child who is looking after their spine and their nervous system, if they are well adjusted, everything's aligned well and free from nerve interference, if they're doing some exercise, so they've got some strength and stability there, if they're doing some stretches to look after their posture and they are maintaining good posture, and if they are keeping the shoulder straps and the waist straps on, then probably they are able to carry a little bit more than that 10 to 15%, which I think most kids probably are going to be carrying more than that. So what I'm saying is, yes, try and minimize their backpack weight as much as possible. But at the same time, I think if you can focus on what you can do to strengthen their spine and nervous system, to improve their posture, to improve their resilience, then it may well be that they can deal with a little bit more than that 10 to 15% as well. Okay. So the next thing we wanted to get them doing is just moving regularly. The research would recommend moving every 20 minutes, right? Not sitting still for more than 20 minutes. And that can be challenging at school because you're not always allowed to just hop up and move around. I'd like to think that starts to change. I know for many years going to chiropractic conferences, we're kind of fortunate as chiropractors. Going to chiropractic conferences, because we're obviously aware of this sort of stuff, you'll see chiropractors regularly hop up, sort of go to the back of the room and just stand for a little while and sort of, maybe even squat a little bit or shuffle their weight from side to side and just move around a little bit. And that's kind of considered very normal at a chiropractic conference, right? Probably would be considered very abnormal, I suspect, still in a schoolroom. But I hope that it'd start to change. But at the very least, if your kids are homeschooling or between classes or, when they're at home doing their homework, if you can try and encourage them to get up and move as much as possible, that's really helpful, because ligaments, and often when we talk about these sort of postural stresses, a lot of the stress is on those ligaments, and ligaments deform over time. So the longer you are in a bad posture for, the more those ligaments are going to stretch and deform, and the more postural problems you're going to cause. And so literally, if all you do is stand up, if all you do is stand up, right, do a lap around your chair, I'm going to practice what I preach and do a bit of role modeling, right? Go around your chair and then sit back down again, then that's actually enough to break, at least momentarily, that ligamentous load. And so then you haven't had that load on those ligaments for quite such a long time, and that disrupts the ability to deform and to change those ligaments. So movement is really important. Moving as regularly as possible is really important, okay? And then you might want to get them just doing some simple stretches and exercises. Now, I know, for some parents who are massively into stretching or yoga or Pilates or anything like that, then your kids may already join you in some of those activities. A really simple way to do that is there's a great little routine called the Straighten Up Australia routine. And it's designed by the Chiropractors Association, or now the Australian Chiropractors Association. And they have a great little flyer, a little leaflet. There's an adult version, there's a kids version. So if you've got younger kids, you can probably give them the kids version. If you've got teenagers and above, give them the adults version, because I don't want the kids version. But they're basically essentially the same. And it's a very simple 3-minute routine that's designed to maintain the health of their spine. They describe it as being kind of like brushing your teeth, but for your spine. Right? So it's just a little routine you can do, some really simple stretches and postural exercises that can really make a big difference. So if that's something you're interested in, we do have those flyers here at Healthy Choices Chiropractic. Once again, we're in St. Agnes. You can find out, I put the links before into the chat. Now I'm going to try and figure out where the chat is now. If you guys can hear me, actually, if you guys can hear me okay, can you comment in here and let me know that you can hear me okay? Because obviously it's all restarted, and that might actually even bring up the chat for me and make it easier for me to chat to you as well, because I'm not the most technologically savvy all the time, so I don't know where the chat has gone, because there was chat here on the dashboard earlier, but I think when you guys say something, it'll bring it back for me. Anyway, there we go. Thanks, Tori. You're awesome. So I will just go in here and do... If you're interested in the practice, here's the website for the practice. I'll put that back into the chat again here. And so you can find us there, Healthy Choices Chiropractic in St. Agnes. So if you're interested in this flyer, you can just come in and we'll give you a couple for free. That's no problems at all. Once again, there's an adults version and there's a kids version. And I will just reiterate, as I said earlier, if you do want to come in and see us in the practice, there's a link here where you can book in to come and see us for a $20 initial examination. We are actually changing our fees as of the end of the month. So it will be more than $20 after that. But up until the end of the month, it will be. If you want to book in and come in and see us, get your spine and nervous system checked. It's only $20 for that initial exam, then you can do that there. Anyway, the point of putting that link there was to say that you can come in and get those Straighten Up Australia flyers. And it's really simple, 3-minute routine to look after your spine and your nervous system, which is great. The next level up from that, as far as looking after your body, is really doing whole body exercises with great posture. So I'm a big fan of whole body exercises because what you don't want to be doing is teaching your muscles to work in isolation. All right. So the classic example of this is you go into a gym and you see someone on that little preacher curl bar, and they're sitting down, they've locked everything in, and they're just working their bicep. Okay. Now, if you want to be a bodybuilder and you want to have a big isolated bicep, then that makes sense, right? That's a good way to do it, right? But if you actually want to be able to use that bicep in the real world, then you need to be able to stabilize your trunk whilst you're using that bicep, right? Because there's not many things you're going to do in the real world where you're isolating everything and you're just using that bicep, right? Maybe like an arm wrestling competition. Even then, you need to stabilize your core, right? So you need to be able to use the core in combination with the muscle. In fact, that was one of the things that some of that chiropractic research I mentioned earlier with the cricketers was able to show, was that that switching on the core before you switch on your periphery, it actually, believe it or not, whenever you move your arm, your core should switch on slightly before your arm actually moves, which is pretty impressive from your body. That stabilizes, gives you a stable base from which to work from so that you can use those muscles safely without injuring yourself. And that's what they were measuring, and that's what they were able to show happened better when they were under chiropractic care, was the core switched on first. Anyway, the point being here that you want to train your body in a way that your core switches on at the same time or even slightly before your periphery, and you want to teach those muscles to work in unison and to coordinate and to switch on in the right order. And so the way to do that is using your whole body, right? So it makes sense to me that rather than doing that isolated preacher bar curl, you might do bicep curls standing up, right? And you might do that with dumbbells to add in some more variety there rather than a barbell where you've got a bit more locked in weight, right? So the more variety you create, the more you have to switch on your stabilizers, the more you're going to work your postural muscles. And when you do it, you want to be standing up in that posture that I described before when I talked about how to check your posture in the doorway. That's the posture you want to maintain the whole time, because you want to be training your muscles, you want to be training your stabilizers to stabilize you in that good posture, right? You don't want to be training your muscles and training your stabilizers to be able to hold you really strongly in a bad posture. That would make no sense, right? That would actually be detrimental to what you're trying to do. So you need to maintain really good posture whilst you're doing the exercise. And the same goes for all of your other exercise, right? If you're doing a push-up, you want to have a nice straight posture between your ankles and your ears. You want to maintain that nice straight line, because that's what you're trying to teach your body how to do, right? If you're doing a deadlift, right, you don't want the whole body to straight, right? Now you need to hinge at the waist and bend, but from your hips to your ears, you want to keep that nice and straight, so that when you're doing your deadlift and coming up, you're teaching your body how to fire those postural muscles, how to maintain good posture when you're moving. Because it's one thing to have great posture statically, and you see this classic, like a lot of yoga teachers, things like the great posture statically, but for some of them, once they start to move and they start to interact with the world and lift heavier weights and do different things, they aren't able to maintain it. Maybe not the yoga teachers, but maybe the yoga students. The yoga teachers are probably pretty good once they start moving as well. But anyway, the point being, you want to be able to maintain that through dynamic movement, not just when you're sitting still. And that's where the whole body functional exercise can be really useful, okay? The next thing I want to talk about is doing some stretches to help counteract that. As I mentioned before, it's the ligamentous load over time that deforms the ligaments. It can really throw your posture out. And so one of the best ways to counteract that and to correct it and get it back the other way is to do some long stretches that actually can, over a longer period of time, start to stretch you back in the opposite direction and counteract that postural stress. So the way that I classically get people to do this in my practice, and I've been doing this for a long time, is using a nice long foam roller. It needs to be one of the long ones like this. I've got mine here because I was using it earlier today, doing exactly this. And I've got a whole video inside my group, Healthy Lifestyle Choices, about how and why to use that foam roller. So I'm going to give you a brief description now, but if you really want to see more about that, then I encourage you to go there. When you do go to that, it's Healthy Lifestyle Choices with Brett Hill on Facebook. Once again, I'll see if I can get, here we go. I'll get the link for that for you as well. And I'll put that back in the comments here too. But you can sign up to that group. Inside that group, if you go at the top, there's a little section called guides. And inside the guides, all of the content that I put in there is broken up into different subtopics, right? So it's like diet, wellness, mindset. And one of them is chiropractic stretches and exercises, right? And in there, you'll find my full description of how to use this foam roller to help undo your posture. But essentially what you want to do is you want to lay lengthways along that foam roller so that it's going right along your spine. So your tail's on one end, the back of your head's on the other end, right? Once again, I really prefer people to be doing this once they've been, I don't recommend this to people in my practice, usually within the first 4 weeks, because I want to make sure that their spine is able to move properly before we're trying to work it into a good position. Because if we're doing it with a dysfunctional spine, once again, sometimes it causes more problems than it solves, right? Regardless, laying lengthways on it, you want to tuck your pelvis under, so you're sort of lengthening your lower back out against that foam roller. You want to tuck your chin right in, so you're lengthening your neck back against that foam roller. Because for most people, what's happened is your head's come forward, and then as a result, rather than walking around looking at the ground all day, you'll hyperextend right at the top there. And so we have this flex neck, hyperextended, what's called C1, that vertebra right up the top there. We have this sort of position. So what we want to do with the foam roller is the opposite. We want to flex the neck back, and then we want to tuck the chin in, okay? And that's going to help to counteract that postural stress that your kids are getting all day, every day when they're sitting at school, when they're sitting on the laptop doing their homeschooling, when they're on there watching TV, playing computer games, on social media, all of those things. You really want to get them doing this, 5 or 10 minutes a day, ideally a couple of times a day, to help to counteract that. Now I'm just going to have a glass of water because I have been talking a lot and my throat's getting super dry. Hopefully you guys don't have a problem with listening to me swallow. My fellow co-host I used to have on my Wellness Guys podcast, Damien, had a real massive, there's a name for it, I can't remember what it's called, massive aversion to hearing people drink and swallow. And it was quite amusing. We used to tease him about it a lot and deliberately do it just to stir him up. But that's probably not a nice thing to do with someone who's got an aversion like that. But anyway, hopefully that's not you guys, and you guys are okay with me having a little glass of water. Anyway, so that's the foam rolling. The other one is just simply chin tucks, okay? And so if you just do that, just tuck your chin in hard, right? Like tuck your chin in as far as you can. Try and feel a stretch back up here under your occiput, under the back of your head, and just hold that for 30 seconds, and then relax. And do that 3 to 5 times, right? Once again, that just helps bring that head back. It helps stretch those ligaments into the neck. Once again, you're bringing extension back into the neck and then flexion by tucking that chin down hard, flexion into that C1. Often people complain about that one because they feel like it's giving them a double chin. You don't have to do it in front of everybody else. You can do it while you're sitting on the toilet if you like. You can do it in the bathroom. You can do it in the sanctity of your own bedroom, whatever. But it's a great one to do. It really does help. So chin tucks are a good one to do. All right. And then, so those are some of the best tips I can give you in terms of, I guess, the physical side of things. But I also wanted to just briefly talk about the diet side of things as well. Because your diet has an impact on your posture and your spine and your nervous system and your muscles and your ligaments as well. Okay, so a few things to be mindful of is, obviously weight has an impact. Now, I hear this all the time in my practice where people come into me and they say, oh, look, I've got this back problem and I think it's because I'm overweight. Usually they say, I think it's because I'm too fat, is what they actually say, right? And what I typically say to them, I say, well, look, if that was true, if your weight was what was causing this problem, then look, to be honest, given our society, you know, a huge percentage, is it 60% of Australians, I think, are overweight or obese, then the majority of our society would have the exact same problem that you have, right? But they don't. Many of them do have aches and pains, back pain, all sorts of other spinal problems, but they don't have the exact same spinal problem. And if it was the weight that was causing it, it would cause the same problem in everybody, but it's not the weight. It's that this area isn't functioning very well. Yes, your weight is contributing to that. It's making it worse, but it's not the problem. The problem is that your spine and your nervous system isn't functioning well, and that's what allowing your weight to bring these problems to the surface. Okay, so managing your weight, maintaining a healthy weight is a good idea. But it's not the be all and end all in this situation, right? It's about getting your spine and your nervous system healthy. So doing the stretches we mentioned, looking after your posture, getting up and moving, seeing a great chiropractor, all of those sort of things are going to have a bigger impact than your weight. But really, you know, when it comes to the weight, it's about, and you know, there are better people than me to help you with this. I know Tori, who is on this call, does a lot of this, helping out her clients with their weight management by really eating a good diet, you know, just getting back to real healthy foods. You know, for me, it always comes back to getting enough fats and proteins in my diet, healthy fats and proteins, which gives me a natural satiety, stops me from being hungry all the time, and helps me consume an appropriate amount of food for the calories that I burn, essentially. So that is, I think, something to be mindful with our kids, that many of them are having too many carbohydrate-laden foods, essentially. Too much sugar, too much processed food, too much carbohydrate-laden food, which is leading many of them to be overweight or unhealthy weight, which I think is a much nicer way to talk about it than overweight, to be an unhealthy weight. But once again, I don't think you should be talking to your kids about their weight. I think you should be talking to them about their diet and about their movement, and how that's going to help, how doing those things well will help them get what they want, whether that be, once again, that might be cricket, it might be dancing, it might be playing computer games, I don't know, whatever it is for them. But show them how, you know, maintaining a healthy lifestyle helps them have the performance they want for their lifestyle. I think is a much healthier conversation to have with your kids than a conversation about their weight. And I think if you do that well, then their weight will just, you know, finding a healthy weight will be a natural consequence of doing the other things well. So anyway, that's what I want to say about weight. That could be a whole nother talk another time. But I do want to mention a few things in terms of their diet. One is that vitamin D is really important for bone health, for health of your whole body, really, but particularly for bone health. Vitamin D is really important. So making sure they're getting enough sunshine, 20 minutes of sunshine, particularly if they are at the moment, you know, they're spending a lot of time inside at school, or they're homeschooling, spending a lot of time inside. We need to get them out and get them into the sun. It doesn't need to be huge. If they can get 20 minutes a day, if they can get some decent amounts of skin exposed, so they can get that sun onto their skin, then that's a really healthy amount that's going to really help them maintain their vitamin D. And they did make sure they're eating really healthy fats, because you need those fats to be able to utilize vitamin D, which is a fat soluble nutrient. So in order to be able to create and utilize, because most of the vitamin D in your body is actually created by your body, not consumed in your diet. So that's why you need to get the sunshine. That's why you need to have the appropriate fat building blocks there to do that. So eating lots of healthy natural fats, particularly fish, are really good for this in terms of getting the vitamin D. The next one I want to talk about is calcium. Obviously, people talk a lot about calcium in terms of your bones, and calcium is important, but it's only one of the things. Like, people act like calcium is the be all and end all in terms of looking after your bones. It's not. There are other really important nutrients as well. And people act like milk is the only source of calcium in the world, when the reality is that for most of our lives, or for most of our evolution, humans didn't consume milk at all. So milk doesn't have to be the source of your calcium either. In fact, it's not terribly bioavailable. So in terms of calcium, too much caffeine and soft drinks, too much acidity in your body can actually leach the calcium out of your bones. So if your kids are having too many soft drinks, too much sugar, potentially too much caffeine, particularly if they are having some of those energy drinks, which are really high in caffeine and sugar, then that can actually cause them to leach the calcium out of their bones, which is obviously, in terms of their spinal health, in terms of their posture, if they're not maintaining the integrity of their bones, they're more likely to crumble and decay and cause problems as they get older. So be careful of the sugar, the soft drinks, the caffeine. Make sure, once again, they're getting lots of fish, nuts, and leafy greens are fantastic sources of calcium for them. The other one that gets overlooked a lot in terms of posture and in terms of looking after the body is collagen. But collagen is actually really important for looking after the spine and the nervous system. And so making sure they're getting enough collagen is important actually for the ligaments, it's important for the bones, and it's important for the muscles. I mean, collagen is super important for so many different things in our body. And I think at the moment, there's a bit of a push towards more plant-based diets and vegan diets and those sort of things. And there's a real risk that many of our kids aren't getting enough collagen as a result of that. So looking at how you can add in bone broth, gelatin, animal products, ideally as your sources of collagen. I know there are some vegan collagen sources out there, but I don't think they're the best. I think the best way to do it is to get the animal products in there. Unfortunately, if I say unfortunately, I don't think it's unfortunate at all. I firmly believe that we are designed to eat animal products, and I think ethically. And once again, this is a whole nother talk. We can do a whole nother time, but I think ethically and environmentally, it's actually the best thing we can do if we do it right and farm it in the right way. But that's a whole nother talk for a whole nother time. But anyway, the point being, bone broth, gelatin, animal products are great sources of collagen. They're really important for your ligaments, for your bones, and for your muscles. Magnesium is also really important for relaxation of your muscles, and also for decreasing or relaxing your nervous system, relaxing your brain. So really important for our kids, especially as they're heading back to school, but particularly if we're talking about their posture, making sure they're getting enough magnesium, and the best sources of that is leafy greens as well as nuts as well. So, but particularly leafy greens, dark leafy greens are great for getting the magnesium in, and then water, right? Making sure they're getting enough hydration, and really, no matter what the sports companies will tell you, the best way to hydrate is to drink water. If you want to add anything to it, add a little bit of salt. If you want to add a bit of flavor, add a little bit of fruit juice, like lemon juice is great, lime juice, or other fruit juice if you want to try and change it and make it more palatable, make your kids enjoy it a little bit more, that's fine. If you really want to have something other than water, coconut water is probably the next best one in terms of hydration, so I'd encourage you to get into that. But really, water's the best. Without the empty calories is the best way to go in terms of hydrating. And hydration is important, once again, for the ligaments and the muscles, particularly to make sure they're well hydrated so they can maintain that good posture and look after the spine and nervous system of your kids. So make sure they're getting enough water. And as I've said numerous times throughout this talk, I really think, if you're at all concerned about your kids' posture, if you've done that posture check on them and you see anything there that you find is a little bit abnormal, if you're nagging them to maintain good posture or encouraging them, hopefully motivating, inspiring them to maintain good posture is way better than nagging them to maintain good posture. But if they're doing it and they're saying, you know what, it just feels really uncomfortable, it's really hard to do, I feel really unnatural,
I get really tired when I try and maintain good weight. It hurts, good posture. It hurts when I try and maintain good posture. If they're saying any of these things to you, I would encourage you to get their spine and nervous system checked by a chiropractor to make sure there's not some sort of underlying spinal and neurological interference that's going on that might be causing those problems. So I'd really encourage you to get them checked out. Once again, if you want to come in and see us at Healthy Choices Chiropractic, we would love that. The links are there in the chat here. So it's like healthychoiceschiropractic.com.au is the practice website. I've got the link there on the chat here to go directly and to book that $20 initial consult if that's what you want to do. If you don't have that link readily available there for you, if you go to that website, healthychoiceschiropractic.com.au, you'll see a link there where you can also book in for that $20 initial consultation too. So that's everything I wanted to go through with you guys tonight. You know, we've talked about the importance of posture and why that is so important. We've talked about how to motivate your kids and role model your kids to show them why it's so important. We've talked about ways of decreasing the stress on their bodies, particularly in terms of the screen time, the backpacks, and moving. We've talked about what we can do to undo those stresses when they are occurring in terms of movement, in terms of exercises, in terms of stretching, foam rolling, chin tucks, and what they can do in terms of their diet to look after their spine, their muscles, their ligaments, and their neurological health, which are all really important. And then, as I said, finally, we've talked about getting a check by a chiropractor, which I think is a great idea for all of your kids to get a checkup. You know, they may not need anything, but get a checkup and to see what's going on and to see whether a chiropractor might be able to help get their spine and nervous system functioning even better, which, as we mentioned earlier, can have effects on the whole rest of their body, including their posture, including their risk of aches and pains, including the function of their brain. So I really encourage you to do that and to get checked out as well. So thank you for joining me tonight, guys. If you want to have a re-listen of this later on, I am going to put this together. It's going to go up on my YouTube channel. It's going to go into my Healthy Lifestyle Choices group and get added to that chiropractic stretches and exercises group or guide that is there. Slowly learning the terminology. So by all means, check that out. If there are other topics that you'd like to see me do one of these sessions on, then please head into that Healthy Lifestyle Choices group and let me know. And as I said, our plan next month is to do a low tox living event. We'd really like to make that a live event, and we're really hoping we're able to do that in the practice. So once again, stay tuned in that Healthy Lifestyle Choices group for the announcement about that. It'll be really like cheap and affordable, make it really easy for people. It'll be so nice to get our community back together for what seems like the first time in forever. So I would love to see you all there. If you are in Adelaide, even if you're not in Adelaide, come and join us and get together because it's been so long. Anyway, have a wonderful night, guys. Thanks for joining me. I hope that answered all of your questions. In fact, if you do have any questions before I go, please put them in the chat. If there's anything that I didn't talk about that you think I should have, or any questions you've still got remaining, then let me know. I'm going to have a little glass of water while I wait for any of those to come through. And if there's none of them, then I'm going to love you guys and leave you and go home and see my family. Oh, Tori says great info. So thank you, Tori. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining me tonight. Hopefully that helps with the kids. And hopefully that other info I shared with you the other day helped with the kids as well. All right, and I think that might be it. There doesn't look like there's going to be any additional questions. So once again, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're watching this within the Healthy Lifestyle Choices group and you have any other questions, by all means, head to that Healthy Lifestyle Choices group. That's your best spot to get in there and to ask me any questions you like and have me jump in personally and answer them and help mentor you towards more health and wellness. So by all means, head there and ask any questions if you're watching this in the replay. Otherwise, thank you guys. Gonna love you and leave you. Have a great night, and I'll speak to you soon.